Edgar Wright delivers on a sequel to The Running Man, but is it worth your time? And welcome to Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of The Running Man 2025. Was it good, bad, or somewhere right in the middle? I have a review for the original Running Man up on my channel you can check out just as well. But taking it into the general thought, I'm going into this film pretty fresh to having watched the original for the first time. Haven't read the Stephen King book, but follows the story where Glenn Powell, playing the Running Man, is taking on this task of this competition. He's struggling as the poor man that's trying to recover and feed for his family. And so he tries to go into a competition show, is convinced into taking on this task, thrown into the Running Man game show, and everything's against him as there's advertising and this manipulation by the government, this overpowered source of Josh Brolin playing this one character that's trying to manipulate everyone to cheer against it in order to gain more money, in order to keep up the ratings of the show. And taking on Edgar Wright's direction, we're treated with some interesting vibes that we're falling about the way, but it also feels like it's the least like Edgar Wright's direction. Possibly studio got in the way, had interference with the stylized action and storytelling he is known for in his directing style. And so that kind of can hinder some of the plot moving forward, but there still is a sense of stamina going on throughout that we're treated with a cast such as Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, and Coleman Domingo, following along with those characters and others along the way, that's treated on Glenn Powell having to survive against all these hunters that are going up against him over this 30-day span. That becomes an interesting premise from the get-go, and compared to the original, there's much more running this time around, where the Running Man is actually running. There's 3 different people involved, but they all are doing their own separate thing. But our main focus, following Glenn Powell playing that guy, is just becoming this heartfelt with an emotional strides that tends to try and get into, taking care of his family, doing this competition show for that, and for the motivations provided, you're understanding the evil corporations that's represented as the government. Now, there's a thematic presence, especially within the original, that's carried on over here, talking against the government, trying to overpower the government and take over what the evil corruption is involved with this game, trying to kill people out and take on the poor and eliminate them. But the way you're formulating this story kind of hinders it from being as present. It is evident within this story, but it's not presently as powerful or as strong. It's not as much in your face or strongly thematic as compared to all the action that's providing with multiple different settings that you're following along throughout. Which takes me into the positive. I really do like what we're getting out of this story. The direction is still strong, even if Edgar Wright's presence seems to be a little absent from this particular story. The editing is rather good enough for the nature of what the studio may have interfered with, and the story was relatively easy to follow with the generalities, and especially knowing the original plot. I still like what they carry over with the thematic present, even if it isn't as powerful or as striking as what we got in the original, but taking on a less cheesy version of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, there's something that's more sensible and easy to follow within what we get out of Glenn Powell that has a great star-studded performance within this one, and Josh Brolin taking on that evil role, being able to manipulate certain parts of the corporation makes it compelling as a story overall. Which takes me into the negative. Ultimately, there's just some disruptions with this story that, with the editing, with certain aspects of the story, it feels like certain parts of the original script were left out of it. I don't know how close this is to the adaptation of Stephen King's book, and so that's not the problem here. But there's still certain things where it could have felt like there's a little bit more emotional strides taken with spending more time with Glenn Powell taking on his family, providing for them, doing things to learn more about the villains, learn more things about where we're headed. And while there's multiple settings we're headed into, it almost feels like there's a little bit too much at times to where you get the gist that Glenn Powell has to move from one place to the other, and without going too into spoilers, there is aspects that are shorter than I would have expected it, which sort of cut the film off short in one sense, even though it has a sizable duration that's proper. But there's ultimately certain things that it feels like it could have stretched either longer or condensed the story down into something that's more sustainable. And another aspect about this film is that suddenly, once you're getting toward the last part of the third act, it suddenly diverts the editing style, certain aspects of the conclusion, to a questionable means of sort of overlaying with a video sequence of how this scene ends, rather than letting the story actually play out naturally, letting it sort of transition, even if it jumps time to finish off the story as it actually does. But the way they showcase it is a jarring turn of events that made me ultimately feel rather good with all of the story so far. But then a sudden sharp turn kind of disrupted and took me out of the film and left me with a sour taste within the way it tried to end. And ultimately, while there were many good things I was able to reflect on, forgive some of the ending, it still is unexcusable with the way they tried to shift it by the very end. So that's just my personal thoughts on The Running Man, which I have to rate a simply 6.5 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of The Running Man. Was it good? Was it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? How does it compare to the original? Let me know your thoughts. And I have a review of the original up on my channel. You can check out just as well. So make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.